The Indonesia equity of Jakarta is household to 10 millionth human beings, but it is as well one of the fastest sinking cities in the planet. If the goes untested, components of the megalopolis could be completely immersed by 2050, say researchers. Is it too deceased? It sits on marshy earth, the Java Sea grinding versus it, and 13 rivers fleeing viaduct it. So it really be a surprise party how flood is common in Jakarta, or, on to expert, it is received worst. But he's not fair on whim floods, the large town is virtually vanishing in the land. This capacity for Jakarta to be immersed isn't a amusing question, says Harry Andreas, who has investigated Jakarta's earth sedimentation for the History 20-year at the Bandung Institution of Technique. If we see at our model, by 2050 on 95% of polar Jakarta will be immersed. He's already event, polar Jakarta has immersed in 10 years and is ongoing to plunge by as lot as 25 sm a year in several components, that is more than rather than dual the world ordinary for coast megacities. Jakarta is dive by an ordinary of 1/15 small a year and nearly part the town now sits under sea standard. The effect is once obvious in polar Jakarta. In the area of Muara Baru, an whole office space house put neglected. It one day posted a fishery business, but the at first floor veranda is the just function portion leftward. The immersed land story is complete of congestive flood water. The earth about it is high, so the water supply has anywhere to go. Buildings how are so deep immersed are seldom neglected love the, since largest of the period the owners will try to install, restore and discover brief-term remedies for the question. But which they can't do is halt the ground suckling the portion of the town downward. An outdoor air minnow marketplace is fair a 5-minute driving off. This walkways are love wave propagation, bending up and downward, human beings can travel and drop, says Ridwan, a Muara Baru inhabitant who frequently visits the minnow marketplace. As the water supply levels subterranean are creature exhausted, the really land marketplace goers go on is dive and changing, creation and irregular and volatile shallow. Year following year, the land has fair stored dive, he told, fair one of lot population of the block worried at which is event to the neighborhood. Polar Jakarta has historic been a seaport town, and though present it houses one of Indonesia's brisk seaports, Tanjung Priok. Its strategy position wherever the Siliwangi inland fluid in the Java Sea was one of the reasons why Holland colonists chose to do it their noisy hub in the 17th age. Present 1.8 million human beings dwell in the municipal government, a interesting mix of attenuation seaport business community, impoverished coast communities and a significant people of rich China Indonesians. Fortuna Sofia lives in a luxury country house in a C-type. The dive of her household is not once apparent, but she says cracks seem in the walls and primary elements each 6 months. We fair include to hold locking he, she says, permanent near her bathing swimming pool in her individual dock fair a few meters off. This support men say the cracks are inflicted by the changing of the land. She's lived there for 4 persons year, but it has already submerged several times, the sea water fluid in and relating the bathing swimming pool completely. We include to go all our furnishings up to the at first story. The heroes and policy of Jakarta's floods fossil groundwaters contemporary open secret, but the effect on the little homes order by the sea is enlarged. Residents who one day had a C-type now see just a boring grey dam, constructed and remodeled in a gallant try to hold sea water of. Each year the tidal gets on 5 centimeters high, Mahardi, a fisher, told. No of the has deterred the characteristic developers. More than opulence apartments dot the polar Jakarta horizon independently of the risks. The chief of the Consultative Justice for Indonesia's Associate of Habitation Growth, Vortex Gonefo, says he has forced by the government to stop future growth there. Yet, he says, so length as we can sell apartments, growth will go on. The otherwise of Jakarta is as well dive, although at a slower bet. In western Jakarta, the land is dive by as lot as 15 sm every year, by 10 sm every year in the east, 2 centimeters in center Jakarta and fair 1 centimeter in southward Jakarta. It may appear remarkable, but down there are few complaints of Jakartans, since for residents there the sedimentation is fair one amongst a multitude of infrastructure facilities challenges they include to transactions in everyday. And how is portion of the history of why the is event. The drama bet at that Jakarta is dive is partially downward to the undue production of groundwater for use as potable water supply, for swimming and some daily need by town dwellers. Pipe water supply isn't safe or accessible in largest areas, so human beings include no selection but to refuge to pump water supply of the aquifers profound subterranean. But while groundwater is inflated of, the earth over it sinks as if it is meeting on a crumbling air balloon, and the leads to earth sedimentation. The position is reinforced by lax regulatory enabling fair on nobody, of person homeowners to large trading shopping center operators, to conduct out their own groundwater extractions. Everyone has a order, of residents to industries, to use groundwater so length as the is controlled, says Harry Andreas. The issue is how they get more than rather than which is permitted. Human beings say they include no selection while the authorities are incapable to encounter their water supply as necessary, and expert prove how water supply control authorities can just encounter 40% of Jakarta's consumer demand for water supply. A homeowner in center Jakarta, named just as Hendry, rest a hostel-like unit named a kos-kosan and has been pump his own groundwater for 10 years to delivery tenants. He is one of lot on his road who do the He's superior to use our own groundwater quite rather than reliant on the authorities. A kos-kosan love the as necessary a lot of water supply. The regional by the government has just newly acknowledged it has a issue in illicit groundwater production. In May, the Jakarta Town Credibility inspected 80 buildings Indiana Center Jakarta's Jalan Tamrin, away on the lining in skyscrapers, trading malls and hotels. It found how 56 buildings had their own groundwater pump and 33 were extract water supply unlawfully. Jakarta's Governor Anies Baswedan says everyone should include a license that will allow the authorities to action how lot groundwater is creature recovered. Such out of a license will include their houseworthiness certification annulled, as would some business community in the identical house. Authorities are as well hoping how the large Garuda, a 32-kilometer external seaside creature constructed through Jakarta Bay on in 17 synthetic islands, will assist save the dive town, at a price of $40 BN. He's creature backed by the Holland and Southward Korean governments and creates an synthetic laguna in that water supply levels can be reduced to enable the town's rivers to leak. It will assist in the flood that is in question while the rainfall go. But 3 Holland non-profit groups liberated a paper in 2017 that throw question on if the seaside and synthetic islands could resolve Jakarta's sedimentation issue. January Jaap Brinkman, a hydrologist in the Holland Water Supply Study Institution Delft Aries, argues it can just always be an intermediate action. He says it will just buy Jakarta an additional 20 to 30 years to halt the length-term sedimentation. Down there is just one decision and all knows the decision, he says. How would be to stop all groundwater production and exclusively trust on some source of water supply, such as rainfall or inland water supply or pipe water supply of person-made reservoirs. He says Jakarta must do the by 2050 to escape main sedimentation. It is not a communication how is creature undertaken to cardiac yet, and Jakarta's Governor Anies Baswedan thinks a less than dramatic action will do. He says human beings should be capable to remove groundwater juridically as length as they substitute it with thing named the bioperi technique. The involves dig a opening, 10 sm India and 100 sm profound, in the land to enable water supply to be reabsorbed in the ground. Critics say the schema would just substitute water supply at a shallow standard, because in Jakarta water supply is frequently inflated out of several 100 meters under land standard. Down there is technique to substitute groundwater profound at its resource, but he's very costly. Tokyo utilized the technique, named as synthetic reload, while it florid harsh earth sedimentation 50 years back. By the government as well confined groundwater production and business community were required to use recovered water supply. Earth sedimentation later halted. but Jakarta as necessary option water supply source for how to job. Harry Andreas, of Bandung Institution of Technique, says it could get up to 10 years to pure up the rivers, dams and lake to enable water supply to be pipe everywhere or utilized as a replace for the aquifers profound subterranean. Jakarta's residents accept a partly fatal relation to their next in the dive town. Residing there is a hazard, says Sofia Fortuna in her household. This human beings there include all recognized how hazard. Further accountability by Tom de Souza. Online beginnings Arvind Surpriyati, Davies Surya and Laban Asa.